Hey everyone, this is Amanda Moore from the Angelman Syndrome Foundation, and you're listening to the ASF podcast, the show that explains everything you want to know about Angelman syndrome. We're so excited you're here, and we hope you enjoy the show.
My name is Christian Pache. I'm on the board of directors of the Angelman Foundation, and I'm also the father to a 20-year-old angel named Aiden. My son is named Aiden. And I'm on this call here because I think I found out about Anthony's movie in local social media. And so when I heard about the topic, I get really excited about it because it's really something that impacts me and everybody who has a kid with Angelman. So I reached out to him and we connected, and I was very excited. I got to come and actually see the movie in the local movie theater, got to meet Anthony, and now we are here together and talking. And I'm very excited about getting the rest of the Angelman community a little bit more insight into this topic and also into Anthony's movie.
Absolutely. And Anthony, before we introduce you, I think it's always wonderful when there's other families who are attached to a project or inspire in some way. So I'm so excited to have Tina. And Tina, I don't think you and I've met. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself and let the community know who you are and why you're with us today.
Okay, so I'm Tina Taosoga. I live in Hawaii on the island of Oahu on the west side, and I have a daughter with Angelman syndrome. She's 32.
Wow.
And so the way that I came across this film is Anthony's wife is my best friend from childhood. When Lohi first started dating him, one of the things she said is he has a niece with Angelman syndrome. And that's so rare.
Rare. Yeah.
And like from the very beginning, to me, it was like meant to be. I was like, are you serious? And she said that she told him, like, one of my best friends has a daughter with Angelman syndrome. So you're right. The way that our community is, we had that connection from the very beginning. And even for me, it's so exciting. I only ever met one other.
Oh, wow.
Other individuals with Angelman.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were like, he's a keeper. You need to keep him.
And I still feel that way.
I love that.
His family.
Right.
And so we've known each other really long. And the very first time that I met Anthony, he was kind of putting the script together. And he said, I have a question. And so he asked me the question, like, told me the premise of the film and said, what would you do? Or, in the case of if this was to happen to you.
Yeah.
And my response was, I think I probably put my hands to my chest and was like, oh my gosh, because it's, I think, all of our biggest fear and worry. And I said, oh my gosh, I said, I've always prayed that the Lord would have mercy and take her with me at the same time.
Mm.
And that's just, if we could be so lucky. And that's where my world without her world without me just doesn't kind of work, And so I was so honored that he asked me about it, and we sat there all through lunch and talked about it. And so, I got to see it from the very beginning and how it grew. And now it's this beautiful masterpiece of a movie that has caregivers like us, parents like us, any caregivers like us feel seen and understood. It's a beautifully and brilliantly written movie. Anthony did an amazing job, and it comes from a very personal place for him as well. So that's kind of how I'm involved and why I'm here today.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned at the very beginning of when you started talking about how you just pray that you guys go together. And I think that's such a powerful statement. And it's probably something that a lot of our families feel. And I also think sometimes a lot of our families they'll start thinking about it and they completely they put it away. They
Yeah.
compartmentalize it and say, I don't have to worry about that right now. I'll worry about it later. And then later comes really, really quick, right? And so I think that Anthony, having a movie like this, I think, especially when you focus on the caregiving part, because the one thing that I've noticed kind of, at least when I started in this role, was that we've spent so much time focusing on the individual with Angelman syndrome. And sometimes the caregiver is like the silent hero of the conversation, right? And they're like, they are struggling, they're physically aching, they're mentally aching, and there's so much that's happening. And so I love the connection between you two. And I always think that, it seems like Angelman syndrome and, having anyone who has a disability, it seems like a very small world, like a big, like, it's a very rare world. But then once you get into this community, it's amazing how connections happen and how important they are. So Anthony, you're the hero of the talk today. And so I love for you to introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about, the overview of the film and kind of the inspiration behind the Paper Bag Plan.
I wrote and directed Paper Bag Plan, and people always ask, where did the story come from? Where was it inspired from? The first person was my mom and my brother Eddie. And so my brother Eddie, people ask, well, what disability did he have? And I usually talk about what he could do. And what Eddie could do is he could open his mouth. When he'd put a spoonful of pureed food up to his mouth, he could open it. And that was the extent of what Eddie could do. And he could not move any of his limbs at all. And so, but he was fantastic company for my mom. And so Paper Bag Plan is really a story about caretakers. It is a story about caretaking because as a child growing up, that's what I watched my mom puree his food, lift him out of that bed, and she would carry him all the way down the hall into the shower because she was a single mom, and so she did it on her own up until her late 70s. My brother Eddie passed away around 2009 at the age of 47. So you could sort of say this story's been building for decades. The second half of the inspiration was my sister Margie, who had her daughter Sarah, my niece, with Angelman syndrome. And two very different types of caretaking because, as you know, my niece with Angelman, she has the cognitive ability of possibly a 1-year-old, maybe a little less. Tina's daughter is a little more advanced than my niece. So it was very difficult for my sister to take care of Sarah. And my mom would say, my God, how blessed I was to have Eddie, who was immobile. Whereas Sarah, she'd see cake on a table and she would pull that whole tablecloth, boom, and everything would come crashing off that table. And she's still like that. Sarah is about 38 now, incredibly strong. And but yeah, the connective tissue with Tina was when I first met my wife, I had mentioned my niece has Angelman, and she said my best friend's daughter has Angelman. So I was like, no, there's like this. That's so rare. I've never met anybody who knows anybody with Angelman. So I thought she was wrong, and sure enough, she was correct. And I met Tina in Hawaii. With my screenplay, I would vet it with caretakers, with people with disabilities, actors with disabilities, and I would make sure, can everybody cross-check my screenplay to make sure it's accurate, to make sure I'm not painting anybody with a disability incorrectly or caretakers incorrectly. And Tina was one of the people that I sent the script to. And while we were having lunch, Tina mentioned that very heartbreaking line of, if I were to die, I would pray that the Lord would take, in the script, it's my son, Billy, with me. But when Tina, when you said that line at lunch, it's such a lived experience, that line, that as the writer, I don't have a disabled child. That's a line that I always knew my mom felt that she would want to go with Eddie. But myself, I guess I had to hear it from Tina to realize, oh my gosh, this is such a worry of when I die, who is going to take care of my child. So I immediately, with Tina, I said, oh my gosh, Tina, can I put that on my film? That's such a heartbreaking line. And to this day, The film played a few days ago. To this day, somebody stood up and said, that line is amazing. And I'd say it is. I did not write that line. That comes from our good friend Tina. And that, like I said, that's from a lived experience.
It's amazing. I mean, your work beautifully portrays both the challenges, and the strength found in caregiving, I think. I'm curious, as you were doing this and as it's getting out there, how do you hope your story inspires others to see caregiving, not just as, as a responsibility, as a lot of people think that, but as a, in some ways, your documentary kind of is very much a journey of empowerment and independence and kind of hope. So how do you hope people, that this film inspires people to see that, kind of that version of it?
Right. And it feels like a documentary, and the way it's shot. But I do feel, it feels like caretaking is one of those, call it a job, because it is a job. It's one that's hidden and one that's not talked about. And even people with disabilities, it's kind of like, well, they're sort of over here somewhere and let's not deal with it. So I just want to bring up the subject more. I want people to talk about it. And this is big pie in the sky, but I want more funding given towards people with disabilities and caretakers, because when we show the film, and Cole Massey, who plays Billy, we'll tour the film together and we do Q&A. People will ask us after the film, what can I do? I have a child that's nonverbal or the multitude of disabilities out there. So I'll say, Cole, can you answer this question? And he says there's not much out there. And he's like, at 22, 25, his benefits were to be taken away, but it happened at 22.
Yeah, I feel like that was very much also the sort of came out a little bit in the Q&A of the movie screening that I was able to attend, right? There is a lot of it is kind of like, I mean, first of all, excitement about the movie, of course, about what is being depicted there, but also the frustration about the sort of lack of resources and the challenges that are really not seen and not addressed that caretakers face. And I think the other two things that I want to just quickly add is, I mean, one of the other things that I think is really exciting about the movie, and I certainly don't want to diminish what Tina and Amanda and all the mothers do, but that it actually depicts caretaking from a father or from a dad's perspective, which is a really, really rare thing, and which is just so amazing, because that is really something that really grabbed me. And I thought it was really an amazing and very, very realistic sort of like depiction of what I, for example, and a lot of many other dads and other caretakers go through. I mean, the movie got me from that very first scene. I don't want to give it away, but it's just, particularly when you have 8 older kids with Angelman, our son is 20, there is stuff that you go through that other people cannot even imagine, like the caretaking, it's really, really well done.
And the physical tasks of caretaking that people don't think about. Yeah, it's like your son, I'm sure, is very heavy, and you have to work out a way to get him in, around certain. I don't know. You have to navigate him, and it's difficult, physically difficult.
Yeah, we had to abort so many plans because he decided he didn't want to come with us, and we cannot force him anymore. And that's just part of the job when your disabled child grows older.
And I think one thing, I unfortunately haven't had the chance to see it because it's not in my area, but I'm very anxious to see it. But I feel like I've lived it by talking a lot with Christian. But I think the one thing that it seems to really portray, once again, is like trying to empower someone to give a sense of independence, knowing that someone's going to be gone. And I think our families that are listening to this, a lot of them will feel like, it's hard to see their child through that lens because there may not be that same sense of independence or empowerment. But I do think, and I'm going to speak as a mom now, I do think I often don't give Jackson enough credit for what he can do. It's one of those things that when you get the diagnosis, you're told everything he won't be able to do. And you take that as, okay, well, he won't be able to do that, so I'm not going to try it. And I do think what we're starting to see a lot more from the community is like, well, we're not going to take that as an answer. We're going to work really hard to give the independence to our loved ones, empower them in a way that, if something does happen to me, and, my biggest fear is that even if I'm still here and he's at school and something happens to him, that he can't tell me something happened to me. But if I can work really hard to give him the independence of using his AAC device, maybe he eventually will be able to. So I love that you were able to kind of highlight that, a little bit in those moments. And I think that there was a particular moment that I think that either I read about or Christian told me about Billy's work at the grocery store. And, I often think people always ask me, is your hope for Jackson long term? And I've said so many times, I would love eventually if he had some independence and had a job at a grocery store or like was a greeter somewhere. So how do you think these small kind of ordinary experiences can change the way that society sees people with disabilities and those who care for them? Because I do think that we're starting to see a little shift in how the people view people with disabilities. And I don't think it's going in a good way. I think it's actually going in the opposite way. So movies like this are so important. So I'm just curious about experiences like that. How are you hoping that shifts the way society sees these amazing individuals?
I know people have asked, one of the scenes is Billy works at a store called Erewhon, which they're down.
Oh, yeah.
It's the premier grocery store.
Right.
Very expensive. So people have asked, is Erewhon going to start hiring people with disabilities? And I say, I don't know. I have no idea. But my hope is that this film would change their hearts. And I know, I believe Safeway hires quite a bit of people with disabilities. And I see them, and I think, right on. It's like so amazing that I see them stocking, or actually we have one that's near us, of Vaughn's. And he's there helping customers find things, and it's fantastic. But I do hope that people do employ people with disabilities more often, because it's hard enough to get a job. It's hard enough for any of us to get a job out there, and then you put on the layer of having a disability. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so difficult. So anyways, yeah, I do hope the film does change hearts and just opens up the world for that possibility of employment.
Hey guys, it's Amanda here. As you know, we're here for you, our community. If you have questions about any topics we can discuss in our podcast, or if you have ideas for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. All you need to do is email me at dearamanda@angelman.org. Thank you so much for listening and your continued support of the Angelman Syndrome Foundation.
So Tina, I want to ask you a few questions. So knowing that you have this like great close relationship, and your family and your story inspired some of this, I'd be curious to hear your perspective of the movie and how it's kind of related to your journey or has helped you navigate some, long-term thinking or long-term planning in any way.
So for me, just like Christian said, I was kind of from the first scene. I cried. I sobbed through the whole movie. I laughed as well. I have to say that he shows all of it. All the triumphs, the hardships, like it touches on all of that throughout the movie. And, one of the things that I just love so much is, that individual, even one of my other best friends, she has 4 kids with special needs, and she's a single mom.
Wow.
And so she and we have that conversation all the time. What's going to happen if something happens to us? How can we set our kids up best for the most success, even if they can't achieve independent living, even if they can't achieve having a job? One of the things is giving that individual independence in whatever range it is. It does so much for that individual. So when we're supporting them and we're helping them to, do more. And so you see that in the movie, and it's amazing because you see the growth as the father is here and he's helping him and he's encouraging him. Then you see Cole or Billy in the movie, you see his self-esteem getting higher and you see the growth in both of them. Oh, I think it's okay to say this, but like he's like a helicopter parent who becomes a parent who will stand back and say,
Wow.
bumps, stand back and say, like, he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And, that's a big thing for us. And I think that's one of the things too, is like, I'm like you, my daughter's 32 now, but I remember when she was little and all the things I said like she can't do. And I remember thinking like, don't tell me that my daughter cannot do that.
Right. Yeah.
And then just trying. And for example, like you guys know with their IEPs and their ISPs and everything, she's been working on some of the same goals for years.
Yeah.
You know how they want to master the goal?
Yep.
In this case, my daughter may never really master it, but doesn't mean we can't continue to work on it and work on it and get that repetition and get her, because a lot of the times we as parents, or I've noticed, that I will do for her before I just stop and say, hey, why don't you try?
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? We go ahead and we do the toileting and the showering and the dressing and all those things because life is happening and it's quicker sometimes, but to slow down and do like the dad did in the movie and really encourage him, or our child.
Yeah.
Things on their own and then have faith in them and give them that space to grow.
I think that's such a great message. Go ahead, Christian.
No, and I think I just wanted to add to that because I think the other thing that I really loved about the movie is the depiction of sort of like, or the looking at the independence from really both sides, right? Because it really starts with a dad, with Oscar sort of like starting sort of that journey to give his son more independence. But through the way Cole depicts the son, Billy, it's really fantastic how you can even see it from his side, right? He's starting to find his own journey a little bit or his own path a little bit. He's trying to get his own independence from his father. And that is amazing to see. And that's going back to what Amanda said. That's so, and also I'm sure what you are experiencing, Tina, that is so challenging with Angelman kids, right? Because most of them are nonverbal. And how do we allow them to express that they want their own independence and get to that point? We really have to allow ourselves to step back and to kind of like see life a little bit from their perspective as well. And I think the movie inspires that angle very much so as well. So I love that about the movie as well.
It's so interesting because I say when Jackson doesn't want to do something, like all those IEP goals, if he doesn't want to do it, he can probably do it. But if he's like, I don't want to do it, he's not going to do it, right? I mean, you guys know that about your kiddos.
Exactly
Tina, I loved what you said because I think that I've been saying this to my husband quite often lately, like, yes, doing the same thing over and over again. Like, for example, learning to be like toileting, potty training is what we're working on. It has been a year too long journey and we do the same thing. The school does the same thing over and over and over again. And sometimes it gets exhausted. And I tell my husband, if we put the hard work in now, it will benefit him in the long run to have some of that independence, right? And so I think that once again, having films that can inspire families like us when we watch it to say, you know what, I need to step back. I am a helicopter mom by definition. I'm a helicopter mom with Jackson. And so, but what would happen if I did step back and just let him be, right? So I think that's so interesting. I'm curious, Anthony, like based on the amount of time it's been out, how many people have seen this? What's the feedback that you've gotten from people that would have any sort of like relation or relate to the people, in your story?
It's been it's heartbreaking, I have to say. It's been amazing, though. And I do have to say, I never thought I would get so many I guess, accolades from people that are caretakers. And I get that at every screening. And I just hadn't thought that, well, there's no films about caretakers. I just kind of write the films that I want to write. I didn't specifically wasn't thinking, oh, there's no caretaker films. Let's write about that. I just wrote based off my family and my experience. And so it brings me joy to know that people are being seen, at least in this film. So it's great. I love it, and I wanted to touch upon what Christian had said about it's a father-son story, which is rare. And I got to give credit to my wife, to Kealohi. She was the one. It was written as a mother-son based off my sister and my mom. And then she had said, why don't you make it a father-son story? Because there's not very many father-son stories like this that are very caring and very loving. And the film is very inspirational. It's not a downer. Some people think it's going to be a downer. It's not a downer. It's a very inspirational film. So, and we had become recent parents at the time too. And so I thought I could write for that space as a father-son. So I just wanted to say that's why it was changed to a father-son. My wife was like, let's make an inspirational father-son story. So I did it.
I think that's perfect. And Christian, I'm glad you highlighted that, because it is like, usually we see the mom being, the number one kind of person, to show up, to do things, to go to therapies, to go, whatever it may be. But we have remarkable dads that are out there doing just as much and wonderful partners in this work. So I'm glad that was mentioned, because I do think that's incredibly important. And Christian, I'm sure that spoke to you in so many ways, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think the reason, Anthony, why this probably is speaking to a lot of people is you're correct. There's not many, if any, films. I only know of one other that I've seen recently where they talk about caregiving and what that looks like. And they talk about the good, bad, and the ugly, of caregiving. And I'm not going to be able to quote it word for word, but there's a quote out there about everyone in your life will be, so everyone will be a caregiver at one point in your life. So putting, policy together, putting resources together, putting whatever together to support people who are caregiving, I think is essential. Because if, I always tell my families, if you're not physically and mentally well, that will trickle down to your child with Angelman syndrome, because you're in the siblings, you're not well, it's going to be a struggle. So I think that's probably why people are so excited about it. I mean, anytime there's a movie that depicts in any way our situation, people go crazy over it in our community. There was a movie on Disney called Out of My Mind, and it was a young girl who was using a communication device, and like our families were so excited, because they're like that, like this is the true kind of reality of our families. And so I think that's probably why people are so excited, and we appreciate that you do those kind of things, because it's really, really, really important. So I think the one thing that a lot of people, want to know, first of all, is I'd be curious from each one of you, since all three of you, one of you created the film and the other two have seen it, what would be kind of your message to, for parents walking in the similar journey after seeing a film like that? Christian, if you don't mind, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think, first of all, go see the movie. Because I feel like it's almost like it should be like on the lecture plan of everybody. I don't want to really limit it to everybody with special needs kids, right? Because it gives you a very realistic insight into what's happening. It should really be, I want to say it should be seen by everybody, or as many people as possible. Again, raising the awareness for this journey and for this side of society is just so important, and so it's so rarely done. So I'm really hoping that movie gets more rewards than it has already received, and that it gets seen by more and more people. So that's number one. Number two, I think, is you can really never think or start early enough to think about the future, right? It is very easy to, and I think it was mentioned earlier, it was very easy to just push this away and say, I'm not going to deal with this. Who knows when this is going to be impacting me? Often at that point in time, it's too late, or you might end up acting in a sense of urgency or in like some sort of an emergency. So start the planning as soon as you can. Start thinking about what scenarios are, what you might want for your child when they grow up, so that you are prepared when the situation actually happens and you can do it as planned as possible. That's, I think, my other biggest advice or takeaway, I think, from this movie.
I think that's an incredibly important message, especially for, for the most people who are listening to the podcast probably have some sort of relation to Angelman. I think it is really, really important that you think about those things sooner rather than later, because the worst part ever is just not having a plan. Like Tina and Christian, I'm sure that like example is like when your child's sick and you can't get answers, but when you finally get an answer and a plan, it gives you a little bit of a sense of relief, right? So having a plan is so important. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Like I said, the film is very inspirational, but the reality is the elephant in the room is that we need to prepare. We need to prepare for when we're gone. And I just wanted to add that my sister Margie, she died of cancer in 2018 and left behind her daughter, Sarah. So, and it was just what happens. And we had no idea she had cancer and she was gone in a week.
Wow.
So anyways, I just want to put that out there that we should all just prepare, because we're not going to live. We're all not going to live forever, and I don't want to end on a sad note, but it is the truth. And it's just like if you prepare, then you have some little bit of ease, I think.
No, I mean it's sad note for
Well
sure
said.
about the loss, but I do think it's an important note because it is a reality that happens, and I think that once again, a family having a plan in place gives such a peace of mind, and also and we could open a can of worms and all of this, but I always think about what will happen, putting that sort of, I don't want to say burden because Jackson is never a burden, but putting that pressure on his brother to have to then jump in and take on everything. And if I haven't done anything, how irresponsible of me to do that to my son. And so I do think that it's so important no matter what. So thank you for bringing that part up, because I do think that's a very important part of this journey for sure.
Sure.
What are you hoping the message parents will get from this message of this beautiful film?
I think one of them is you're not alone, and to kind of like, if you are feeling alone, to find your community, and we're lucky now we have like online communities and everything, but just so that they don't feel alone, because it can be a very isolating journey for us as parents. And so that's one of the things, but also that there's hope, that there's hope, and whatever level you're at, that there's hope and there's things. This movie is so inspiring. And I have to say, like, even for parents of kids that aren't special needs, it still touches them the same way, because as parents, that is something that we worry about,
Oh yeah.
and so the movie really is for everyone. Everyone can be inspired. Everyone. And like Christian said, go see the movie. Like, you won't be disappointed. You're going to be like me. I want to watch it like over and over and over.
I love that.
It has so many gems. It's just so beautifully written that there's so many things in there. There's not one scene that is wasted. Every scene of that film is just brilliant. And I just have to give the credit to Anthony and to his wife, Kelohi. Like, they did such an amazing job, and they are people with hearts of gold. Anthony wrote from the heart, and you can feel it. And that's why I think it feels very real, very relatable. And so they did like an amazing job, putting it all together, showing the representation of both sides, caretaking and for the special needs child or adult, I think it's important that we just continue to encourage our individuals, our families, because integration is so important. Know? And at whatever level it is, it's just kind of mind blowing that it's 2025 and some people still don't know how to act around people with special needs.
Right.
We got to just keep giving them those opportunities.
Absolutely.
So I was the only one at my church who has special needs. But, we were there. And so every one of those kids who are now like in their 20s and 30s have had that interaction with Nicole, have a relationship with her. And that just kind of opens the door. So even if we make little steps in our small little bubbles, it can ripple out. And it's so very important. So
I love that. That's a beautiful message. I think that our individuals with Angelman syndrome have the power to change everyone who comes in contact with them. I always tell people, like, I don't know my life without Jackson and without Angelman, because he brings a level of joy and inclusivity, and he doesn't know hate. He just knows love and acceptance. And I think that is such a message that if everyone in the world could have that same kind of lens would be quite remarkable. And so, Anthony, before we talk about where people can see it and all that fun stuff,
sorry to interrupt. Look who joined.
No, I love that. So for people who can't see, we have an amazing visitor with us. Tina, introduce your daughter.
This is Nicole. This is my angel. Say hi, Nicole.
Hi, Nicole. And you said she's 32?
She's 32.
32 years old. You look 21.
Deletion positive.
Okay.
And she's home today. So she just came to check on mommy.
Oh, I love that. Well, I'm so glad you're here. You can help me ask Anthony what kind of message he is hoping people walk away with for this film.
Well, I'll tell you, comparing Nicole, wasn't comparing, but when I first met Tina and Nicole, I immediately thought of my niece and how advanced Nicole was. Nicole could sit there at a table, she could raise her hand, she could ask for things. And my niece, Sarah, likes to scream a lot. But I could see the difference in the time and the dedication. And my wife is just would tell me, Tina has worked with Nicole and worked with her and worked with her. And this is, this is what you get. You get a child that's more advanced. So, I just applaud Tina and the many other parents out there that are working hard at it. So, the other takeaway, I could say yes, don't be a helicopter parent, but we all do that. And it's hard not to when you're trying to get out the door and you're trying to race. It's just faster to put on the shoes for them. And so that's just the balance. You just kind of have to know when to push and pull back with your child. But from what I've seen, like with Tina, it's like if you push your child, they're gonna get smarter, they're gonna get stronger, they're gonna get more independent. So I don't know, just keep working at it. I think that's my takeaway.
I love that. I mean, I think movies like this, if it can just plant a seed once again in a parent's mind of as they're rushing to get out and putting on that shoe, it may spark immediately be wait a minute. From that movie, I'm going to stop and I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to let him do it on his own. So I love that. So I'm curious. Anthony, I don't think we've formally talked about this, but we're hoping that we're going to be able to show your film at our family conference in 2026.
Sure.
And so I think that that's going to be, if we can make it happen, it's going to be a really powerful experience for our families in the community, because once again, I know it will speak to them and it will open up such rich dialogue within those, within those that are able to view it. But for people who are dying to see it now, where can we see this film?
It's, right now only Academy members, unfortunately, could watch it. It's on the Academy screening room. It's up for Best Picture and all that.
Oh, it is?
Well,
that's amazing.
But I mean, no. Well, it's in consideration. So, I mean, the reality is we don't have the money, the marketing to push the film, so it's going to get buried, of course. But it's there. It's there for them to see. But we're hoping January or February, it will be online where you can rent it somewhere. It may not be a Netflix, but you will be able to find it. So I would say if you, my Instagram is Paperbag Plan. We post things there, or our website, Blue Sun Pictures. We're hoping to post the date and where you can find the film. But
perfect.
We just finished our theatrical run. So yeah, we should be online pretty soon. That's
fantastic. And if there's anything that our community can do to push the Academy Award in any way, I will tell you, when we ask the community to mobilize, they mobilize. So you let us know how we can support you in that effort as much as we can. And so we will, for those of you that are listening, we will make sure as soon as we have more information on where you can view that, we will put it up on our socials, on our website, and we'll make sure to get that out for everyone to see. And we'll also continue working on the plan to be able to screen this at our conference in July of 2026. But Anthony, I just want to personally say thank you from, not only the CEO perspective, but more so from a mom perspective, that once again, you've put a story out there that really helps people understand our journey. And what that looks like, but also how people can support and come along with us, because we need villages around us to help us in this journey. So thank you so much for taking the time. And Christian, thank you for bringing it to us. Anthony, you would be so proud. He literally within seconds of, I think, leaving your screening was texting me and saying, oh my gosh, you've got to hear about this. We've got to partner with him. And so Christian, thank you. And Tina, it's wonderful to meet you, and thank you for that. This connection sparked such a beautiful film, and I hope that one of these days you and I will be able to meet and spend some time together. But thank you so much for spending time with us today. And for those of you who are listening, make sure and go to our website, where you can find a lot of resources on long-term planning, on supports, and where we'll put any information on this, where you can screen this video. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for listening to the ASF podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support us, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating or review. And please don't forget to subscribe.